Hallo, ich bin's, Robin, Deutschlehrer mit Core Languages, and today I'm back at Hampton Park in Charleston, South Carolina. If you look back at your German learning journey, you will probably have discovered that there are some elements to German that are uniquely complicated and very different from English. Nouns have genders, we have 4 cases, conjugation is a little different, but there's another element that gives some German learners a bit of a hard time: word order. German word order is very finicky and it can change on you all the time. And then there's different elements that change the word order, but in very unique ways. One of these elements is conjunctions. There are some conjunctions that don't change the word order, some conjunctions that change the word order a very specific way. There's another set of words that if we use as conjunctions, they have another way that they change the word order. And we have to understand these different ways in order to form a perfect German sentence. Well, in today's video, I will review word order with conjunctions so that you can incorporate them correctly into your German sentences. I would say los geht's und viel Spaß beim Deutschlernen.
Conjunctions and word order. To form a basic sentence in German, we use regular word order, which consists of who, the subject of the sentence, wer, and what, was, the verb of the subject. What is the subject doing? But we can also add elements that tell us when, why, how, and where something is happening. In a sentence, we typically need a subject, which is the who element, and then we need a verb. What is it that the subject is doing? And then we often have the object, which is also a what element. Unlike English, the direct object can be preceded by other elements. For example, die Studentin lernt Deutsch. The student learns German. Die Studentin is the subject, lernt is the verb, and Deutsch is the object of the sentence. But I could also say, die Studentin lernt jetzt im Kurs Deutsch. The student learns German in the course now. The element of when and where were placed before the object. In order to form a sentence in regular word order in German, we need to remember where these different elements go in a sentence. We would typically start with the who, or the subject of the sentence, followed by the what, or the verb. The when tells us about the time. The why tells us about the reason. The how tells us about the manner. And the where tells us about the place. For example, der Junge spielt nachmittags zur Verbesserung seiner Fähigkeiten begeistert auf dem Fußballfeld Fußball. If I were to translate the sentence word for word, it would be, the boy plays in the afternoons in order to improve his skills enthusiastically on the soccer field soccer. Notice that in German, all these other elements, when, why, how, and where, are placed before the object Fußball. An easy way to remember the regular word order in German is Teekamel, which would translate to tea camel. T tells us about the tempus, the time. K, causal, gives us the cause or the why. M, modal, gives us the how. And L, lokal, tells us where. In German, we also have inverted word order sentences. Inverted word order means that an object or an adverb slipped in first position of a sentence, often for emphasis. If this occurs, the verb stays in second position, but the subject is now pushed to third position. We would start the sentence, for example, with the object, and then the verb, and then the who or the subject, and then followed by the other elements of the sentence, when, why, how, and where. For example, das Mädchen liest leise ein Buch. In this example, we followed regular word order. Das Mädchen is the subject, liest is the verb, and ein Buch is the object. A girl reads a book quietly. Inverted word order would look like this. Ein Buch liest das Mädchen leise. Literally, the sentence would translate to a book reads the girl quietly. We put emphasis on the book, which pushed the subject to third position. We can use coordinating conjunctions to connect words, clauses, and sentences with regular word order. Using a coordinating conjunction does not by itself change the word order in the second clause if we are connecting two main clauses. The coordinating conjunctions in German are and, aber, but, oder, or, sondern, but instead, denn, then. We can use coordinating conjunctions to connect words. For example, der Kaffee ist heiß und schwarz. The coffee is hot and black. Wir trinken Kaffee oder Tee. We drink coffee or tea. We can also use coordinating conjunctions to join clauses or sentences together. Both sentences would be main clauses, which means they are clauses or sentences that can stand independently. For example, ich mache gern Yoga, aber ich habe dafür im Moment keine Zeit. I like to do yoga, but I don't have a lot of time for that at the moment. We connected two main clauses. Ich mache gern Yoga. Ich habe dafür im Moment keine Zeit. We can also connect a main clause to a subordinate clause or ein Nebensatz. When we connect a main clause to a subordinate clause, we need a subordinating conjunction. Subordinate clauses are dependent clauses, meaning they cannot stand alone as a complete sentence. Subordinate clauses contain a subordinating conjunction which changes the word order in the subordinate clause. They are found at the beginning of a sentence or after a main clause set off by a comma. Here are some Beispiele. Sie kocht Nudeln, weil sie hungrig ist. She cooks noodles because she is hungry. Notice how the verb ist was moved to the end of the sentence. Ich weiß, dass ich gesünder essen sollte. I know that I should eat more healthy. Again, notice that the verb sollte has moved to the end of the sentence. Wir fahren nach Prag, sobald du dich anziehst. We are driving to Prague as soon as you get dressed. I can also start the sentence with the subordinate clause. Weil sie hungrig ist, kocht sie Nudeln. Pay attention to what happened in the main clause. The entire subordinate clause is now considered position 1, which causes inverted word order, meaning the subject, sie, is now in third position. It would be incorrect to say, weil sie hungrig ist, sie kocht Nudeln. Dass ich gesünder essen sollte, weiß ich schon. That I need to eat more healthy, I already know. Again, the subject follows the verb. Weiß ich schon. Sobald du dich angezogen hast, fahren wir nach Prag. As soon as you have gotten dressed, we are driving to Prague. Again, wir is behind the verb fahren in the main clause. When forming a sentence with a main clause and a subordinate clause, keep the following things in mind. The main clause or the independent clause can stand alone or independently. The subordinate clause depends on the main clause and cannot stand alone, hence the name dependent clause. The subordinate clause will begin with a subordinating conjunction, which in German kicks the verb to the end of the clause. The other thing we have to keep in mind is that we can start a sentence with a subordinate clause, but then we also have to change the word order in the main clause. The subordinate clause will begin with a subordinating conjunction, then the subject, the predicate, and then the verb, which was kicked to the end of the clause by the subordinating conjunction. Then in the main clause, we start with the verb, then the subject, and then the predicate. In this example, we started with a subordinate clause and then the main clause. When we start with the main clause, we have the subject, then the verb, then the predicate. And then in the subordinate clause, we begin with a subordinating conjunction, the subject, the predicate, and then the verb that was kicked to the end of the clause by the subordinating conjunction. This is the main clause, and this is the subordinate clause. Here are some examples. Weil du gesund ist, siehst du gut aus. Because you're eating healthy, you look good. But I could also say, du siehst gut aus, weil du gesund isst. You look good because you're eating healthy. There are many one-word or multiple-word subordinating conjunctions or untergeordnete Konjunktionen. Remember that these can only be found at the beginning of a subordinate clause, and they will always kick the verb to the end of the clause. Feel free to read along. Here are one-word conjunctions and their English translations. Als, bis, bevor, da, damit, das, ehe, falls, indem, nachdem, ob, obgleich, obwohl, seitdem. Sobald, so oft, solange, während, weil, wenn, wenngleich. Here are some multiple word conjunctions. Als ob, als wenn, so dass, zu. There is a third option, which helps us connect clauses and sentences. We can use some transitional adverbs as conjunctions. They're not grammatically conjunctions, but they fulfill the same purpose, connecting clauses and sentences. However, using a transition word or adverb as a conjunction changes the word order another way. It's different from how subordinating conjunctions change the word order. Here are some examples. Trotzdem, nevertheless, dann, then, schließlich, after all, or in the end, and deshalb, deswegen, and darum, all of which mean for that reason or that's why. Here are two main clauses. Ich bin heute sehr müde. I am very tired today. Ich gehe in die Arbeit. I go to work. Let's watch what happens when we put these two main clauses together and connect them with an adverb. I could say, ich bin heute sehr müde, trotzdem gehe ich in die Arbeit. You will notice that the subject ich was pushed to third position because now trotzdem is in first position. Trotzdem in this example helps us connect these two sentences. I am very tired today, but nevertheless, I go to work. Let's compare this sentence to a sentence with a subordinating conjunction. Ich bin heute sehr müde, obwohl ich in die Arbeit gehe. In this example, obwohl, the subordinating conjunction, pushes the verb gehe to the end of the sentence. And now, let's connect these two sentences with a coordinating conjunction. Ich bin heute sehr müde und ich gehe in die Arbeit. You will notice that both sentences follow regular word order. Let's practice adding different elements to a sentence. Look at this Beispiel. Der Mann isst ein Brötchen. We can add an element that tells us where. Pay attention to where it is placed in the sentence. Der Mann isst im Café ein Brötchen. The man eats in the cafe a bun or a little bread. How about this example? Die Sängerin singt die Oper. The singer sings the opera. Now let's add the element how. Pay attention to where it goes in the sentence. Die Sängerin singt schön die Oper. The singer sings beautifully the opera. Notice the awkwardness in the English translation. We would naturally say, the singer sings the opera beautifully. This is an example that shows that other elements can precede the object in German sentences. Let's practice. Üben wir. Choose the sentence with the correct word order. Wir gehen heute Abend aus, obwohl regnet es. Or, obwohl es heute Abend regnet, gehen wir aus. The correct sentence is, obwohl es heute Abend regnet, gehen wir aus. In this example, we started with a subordinate clause. The subordinate clause begins with a subordinating conjunction which pushes the verb regnet to the end of the clause. And because we started with a subordinate clause, we need to change the word order in the main clause. And the subject wir is now behind the verb gehen. How about this example? Sie sprechen gern über Musik, weil sie Musiker sind. Weil sie sind Musiker, sprechen sie über Musik. Look at the second sentence. The second sentence begins with a subordinating conjunction, but the verb is not kicked to the end of the sentence, so it cannot be correct. The correct sentence is, Sie sprechen gern über Musik, weil sie Musiker sind. About this example. Ich gehe nicht gern surfen, sondern gehe ich gern segeln. Or, ich gehe nicht gern surfen, sondern ich gehe gerne segeln. Sondern is a coordinating conjunction, so the word order in the second main clause does not need to change. The correct sentence is, ich gehe nicht gern surfen, sondern ich gehe gerne segeln.
Vielen Dank fürs Zusehen. I hope you now have a better understanding of word order with conjunctions in German. As always, if you have more questions, feel free to comment, or if you're interested in joining one of our German courses with a live instructor, feel free to message us directly. Das war's, vielen Dank und bis zum nächsten Mal.